Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be looking at variables and if-else statements. First, we're going to be looking at variables. So we're going to create a new C file called variable, which is vi variable.c. Inside, we're going to put in our template, which you do not need to know, which is include standard io.h. We're going to put in a comment that tells what our function is going to do. We're going to have a main function that prints different data types. Then it's going to return 0. Now we're going to write our main function like usual, which is int main void. Before we get into creating variables, we need to look at different data types in C. The first one is int, which is used to represent integers. The second one is char, which is used to represent characters. And finally, we have float, which is used to represent decimal numbers or floating point numbers. Now that we know the data types, we can start creating variables. To create a variable, the syntax is the type followed by the name of the variable. For example, if we wanted a variable named h, so it's going to be an integer, so int h semicolon, this will declare the variable. We can initialize the value on a separate line by using the name of the variable, equal sign, for example 19. Another option is to initialize the variable after you declare it on the same line, so int age equals 19, semicolon. The second data type is char, so for example char grade is equals to, we're going to be using single quotes for characters, so it's going to be single quotes a, for example. There are also strings which are represented using the char type, but those are a bit more complex, so we're going to be looking at them in future videos. The final data type is float. For example, we can have a variable named average equals 4.32. Now that we have our variables, we can print them to the screen using the printf function, which we used in the previous video. So it's going to be printf. So to tell C that we want an integer, we want a char, we want a float to be printed, they have their own identifiers, which is, for example, for int, it's %i. So it tells the C compiler that it wants an integer in the place of %i. So we can say, I am %i years old, and to pass in our variable age, we can use comma. First we need to close the quotation, then comma, age will substitute age in place of %i. Next we can print grade, so we can say I got a, then %c is used to represent the character. You can memorize this by the first letter of the data type. So it's going to be comma grade. And finally, to print the float, we can follow the same procedure. So printf my average was, for floating points, you're going to be using %f. So comma average. So that's all about declaring variables and printing them. We can test this program out. First, we need to save the file. Then we can use our GCC compiler to compile the .c file. So we're going to use GCC variable.c. If we want the output file, which in the previous video we can check it by using ls, we had our output file named a.out. But if we want our output file to have a different name, we can use the following command, which is gcc variable.c -o, then we can put in the name of the file we want, for example, variable. And it's compiled with no errors. So if we check our directory, we can see there's a variable, which is not variable.c, but variable alone. That is our executable, so we can run it with /variable. As you can see, oh, I forgot to put in the new line character, so it's a bit messy. We can fix that by going back to the variables file. And at the end of each string, we can add the new line character, which is \n. \n. We can save the file again. Then we have to compile it again. As we saw before, it won't work unless we compile it again. So gcc variables variable.c, and we want it to be named variable. So compiled again with no error, so we can run it with /variable. As you can see, it printed I am 19 years old, I got an A, and my average was 4.32. The 0 zeros after it is because we're using floating points. We're looking to those later. Next, we're going to be looking at if-else statements. So we can create a new file for that, which is vi_if_else.c. Again, we can put in our template, which is include standard io.h. Then we're going to put a comment. We're going to have a main file, which is going to print different values based on conditions, and it's going to return 0. So we're going to write our main file, our main function, which is int main void. So when we come to if-else statements, they're as you would use it in English. For example, if we say if A is greater than B, do this, else do something else. So we can look at an example here. For example, if we initialize an integer A to be 2 and an integer B to be 3. So the syntax for an if statement is straightforward. So we're going to say if, and in parentheses, we're going to put in our condition. So here, for example, we can say if A is greater than B, we want to do something. So we're going to put it in curly braces. We want to print, as we saw in the previous file, we can use %d to represent an integer. So we can say %d is greater than %d again. So in order to substitute the variables, we're going to use comma, and in the first %d we want to put A, and the second one we want to put B. This is an if statement. So if we want to add an else statement, we can say else, and again using curly braces we can say print f %d is not greater than %d, and we're going to substitute in the variables, which is A comma B, and that's it. So we can, after we're done, we can return 0. I forgot to do that in the previous file as well. Return 0, then close our file. So we can test it now with the compiler. So we can go back and type in gcc if-else.c, and we want it to be named if_else. No errors. So if we look into our directory, we have an if-else file. So we are going to run it if_else. As you can see, it's printing in 2 is not greater than 3. Oh, we forgot the new line character again. We can add that. Sorry. I accidentally went into the if-else file instead of if-else.c. That's why there was a lot of nonsense. So inside the if-else file, we're going to add in the new line character at the end of each string. New line \n. Over here as well, \n. As you can see, what happened is, so we had a value of A2. So it went into the if condition. So it checked if A was greater than B. In this case, A is not greater than B. So the 2 is less than 3, so it went to the else statement and it printed 2 is not greater than 3. If we change this to, if we make A 4 and B 3, it should then print the statement that's in the if statement, which is 4 is greater than 3. So we can check that by compiling it again using JCC if underscore else dot c /out if underscore else. Again, we have no errors, so we can run if underscore else. And as you can see, it prints 4 is greater than 3. So these are the basics of if-else statements and the basics of variables. And that's it for this video. You can find different types of exercises in the description together with their solutions, so you can try it yourself. You'll also be able to find all the code we wrote in the description. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily programming videos.